Welcome to The Good Pod. Very special episode of The Good Pod, if you will. We figured with, the big moments we've just gone through, the loss of Will Gardner, we bring in some bonus content to try and help you, sort through your feelings. We're trying to sort through our feelings. So we decided to make this special Goodbye to Will episode where we have a few different things for you here in the pipeline that we're gonna talk about, we're gonna go through. Marissa,
Yeah.
Marissa's here, everybody. I'm not it's
Hey.
not just me. Marissa, you good?
I'm good. Jason, you good?
I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Good.
We're all still getting through this thing. We're still trying to process our feelings and emotions. So we decided to do this to just kind of group therapy, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had conversations around like finding it out it happened and then being with our characters through the aftermath of what it all happened and how they were dealing with grief. And so now it's our time. Now it's our time to kind of sit with our feelings and kind of see what's going. At least, I mean, I don't know about you, Jason, but not seeing Josh Charles on the TV for a while is going to be personally really hard for me to do. So I just need a moment. I need a moment to like collect so that I can move on. I'm not like David Lee. I can't just keep going. I have to just pause and be with it and then I can move on. So consider this our as Jason has on his on his message board in the back and our In Will Memoriam section of our podcast to kind of just ground us in this so that we can go forward with the rest of the series without Josh Charles and without Will Gardner. Not like we're expecting it to be anything different or weird or whatever. We just need this time.
Yeah. So we're gonna do a couple different things. We are first Marissa's going to walk us through a letter that was posted by the Kings at the time, right after Will's death episode. We did get we kind of got a message from, I think it was Bex, who we're going to talk about a little bit, that learns of Will's passing from a Facebook post of the Kings that were saying Will's
Oh,
death. It was like, okay, kind of like is it kind of spoiled this, but okay, cool. But this was a letter that the Kings posted to the Good Wife fans right after episode 15.
yeah. So this is like old school, right? Like when this came out, we're kind of in the middle of like streaming hasn't happened, but we're very much in a social media era. So the Kings like put this in the newspaper and also wrote this and put it on Facebook, as Jason has talked about. So I'm just going to read the letter and we can kind of like talk through it. Dear loyal Good Wife fans, we, like you, mourn the loss of Will Gardner. And while Will is gone, our beloved Josh Charles is very much alive and remains an integral part of our family. What do you think? They're like, hey, we know Will's gone, but Josh is still alive and he's not going too far. So basically, don't get mad at us. Like,
Well, the funny thing is, like, and Josh Charles will return to the Good Wife fold in a way. He directs some
yes,
other episodes in the future of the series. So yeah, I mean, it's not as if there was some like really
like a beef.
contentious. Yeah, there was nothing
Yeah,
contentious about this.
like it's not like two of our stars cannot be in the same room at the same time. This like Josh Charles is not exited, like doesn't have an exodus from this production. Like he's still very much around.
Yeah, I think what we've heard about Josh Charles's departure is that his contract was up, and I think he's even said in some press that like this is a lot for him. Like doing 22 episodes of a courtroom drama is just kind of draining. I think he was newly a father at this point. He just got married not too long before this and wanted to spend more time with his real family. And so he decided that at the end of his contract, he's gonna say deuces. And what I've also seen and read is that Juliana Margulies is the one that kind of convinced him to like stick around a little bit. Let's let your story, let's give you a send off like no other send off, and that this relationship between Juliana and Josh was, I guess, good enough for him to be like, all right, yeah, I'll stick around and really make me leaving a big event or whatever.
To continue in the letter, the Good Wife at its heart is the education of Alicia Flora. To us, there will always be tragedy at the center of Will and Alicia's relationship, the tragedy of bad timing. And when faced with the gut punch of Josh's decision, made over a year ago, to move on to other creative endeavors, we had a choice to make. We could send him off to Seattle, which is a nod to ER because that is what happened with Doug Ross. And ER, spoilers for Doug, for ER, but it's been a long time, and Juliana Margulies' character was involved with Doug.
Oh, yeah, that's interesting.
So, little shout out to ER. We could send him off to Seattle, but he could we could send him off to Seattle. He could be disbarred or get married or go off to Borneo.
What's that a reference to? I mean, not Survivor.
Well, I'm pretty sure Survivor was pretty big at this time. Like, it's 2013. Like, we're
Survivor was only in Borneo for its like
for the first one. Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Do good works. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. But there was something about the passion that Will and Alicia shared that made the distance a meager hurdle. The brutal honesty, the reality of death speaks to the truth and tragedy of bad timing for these two characters. Will's death propels Alicia into her newest incarnation. Like she's an evolving Pokemon. Like,
yeah.
This is what I feel like this is what they're setting up here.
This really increases her feelings HP and really get her to her next stage evolution.
Yes. Death also created a new dramatic hub for the show. We're always looking for these turning points. Some event midway through the season that will spin everyone's lives in new directions. These turning points keep the show from slipping into a numbing sameness and keep the characters fresh. Because you see how they react to a completely new status quo. Will's death in many ways becomes a hub for the whole series, violently spinning everyone in new directions. So a little foreshadowing there. Finally, we chose the tragic route for Will's send-off for personal reasons. We've all experienced the sudden death of a loved one in our lives. It's terrifying how perfectly normal a sunny day can be and then suddenly explode with tragedy. Okay, I do want to place this. This might be a stretch, but this episode ran in what, 2013?
13, 14, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's too much of a stretch. Anyway, all I could think of for some reason is like 9/11, but I'm like, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Because they said it might have been something that happened, like, or Sandy Hook or something that happened around that time that really anchored this for them.
There's always something.
Everything, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Television, in our opinion, doesn't deal with enough the irredeemability of death. Your last time with a loved one will always remain your last time. The Good Wife is a show about human behavior and emotion and death. As sad and unfair as it can be, it is part of the human experience that we all share. Thanks for listening and watching and caring and inspiring us to rise to the level of your passion and intelligence. There are 7 wonderful episodes to follow this season, and Josh will be directing one of them. We think you will enjoy them. It's not all tears. There's comedy too. Michael J. Fox is back for 4 episodes. Dylan Baker, Dallas Roberts, Stalker Channing, as well as amazing new guest actors. And of course, Juliana does some of the best work of her life. I have a lot of that could be read as true or as in we have to say this otherwise she'll fire us, or she'll leave the show. Archie, Christine, Alan, Chris, and Matt as well. Life does go on.
Interestingly enough, right after that
Yep.
sentence about Juliana's the best work of her life, the very first word, the next sentence, Archie.
Not Christy Bransky.
No, Archie's first. Take that, Juliana. Archie, Christine, Alan, Chris, and Matt as well. I'm trying to think like Archie, Kalinda, Christine, Diane, Alan, Eli,
yep.
Chris, Peter,
Noth,
Matt,
yep.
and Matt is Carrie.
Yep.
Yeah, life does go on. Yeah. Wow. I was like, that's interesting. That was an interesting way to arrange those actors.
I thought so too. I was like, especially to say like the best work of her life. Anyway, we've always taken a guiding principle of the show that drama isn't the event, it's the aftermath of the event. We think you'll find that true in this episode. Thank you for your devotion to the show. We are continually grateful. With all our thanks, Robert and Michelle King.
I mean, listen, it's nice of them to come out and get and deliver this message, right? I think a lot of people probably needed it in the moment of like trying to really understand what this was, what was going on. So good on them for deciding to do that and to kind of like give a little more context to this, while also kind of being like, this wasn't our fault. This was Josh's fault. Josh wants to leave. Like,
Well, I think they're in a tough position because I think, like, I don't know, I can't remember, and I really wish I could remember or find like how much chatter was going on about the Great Schism. Because if there's word that your set is not a happy set, if there's word that there's stuff going on there, like this is a calculated PR move to say like, hey, look, Josh is leaving not because like we have a hostile set environment, not because there is some sort of situation going on here with Juliana who's doing the best work of her life ever, or you know what I mean? Like not because of that. This happened because Josh decided a year ago. We decided this. And also, it fits within the overall scheme of this is a show about the education and evolution of Alicia Florrick. And so I thought, like, it's very PR-y. At the same time, like, I think the fans really appreciated it. I think it's doing both at the same time, which is what good PR would do. But it's important to kind of look at it, I think, with the context of what might have been said about the show and the set in general.
yeah, I mean, I think it shows the care that the Kings have for the audience, right? Because
Yes.
you don't always get this when you get these like really crazy, shocking moments. You don't always get a explanation of like what went into this decision. So yeah, I mean, good on them for doing that. So yeah, we had this episode. We knew it was going to be a big episode. I said, who can we talk to? Is there anyone we can talk to about this episode, the impact of this episode? I for as long as this podcast has been running, I've been trying to talk to people from the show. I have not gotten far with that. So I was just like, where else can I go? So I was like, I was thinking at the time, like, okay, the the content about the show. What was the conversation about this moment and about the show when this happened? I was like, who was writing about the show at the time? So I decided to look into the recaps and who was writing about it. And I found someone from Vulture who was doing weekly recaps. Vulture itself was doing weekly recaps. So I was like, okay, let's see who was doing recaps around the time. There was a few different people that were doing recaps. So I wrote to those people and Carolyn Murnick, who thankfully, coincidentally enough, wrote the recap for episode 15, the Will Death episodes. And she got back to me because I emailed these people like, hey, we are, I know as weird as this sounds, we are a the Good Wife recap podcast, and we're at that episode. We're at the Will moment. We're at the Will juncture. We would love to hear what you had to say about it and what was the feeling like at the time, what was going on at the time. So I looked into Carolyn. I was like, oh, okay, Carolyn is for real. She wrote a book. I listened to the book when she said she was willing to come on. I was like, let me listen to this book. It's a very good book. It's kind of like a true crime / memoir type of deal. So go check that out. It's called. You'll hear about it in the interview that we're about to let you listen to or watch or whatever. It's called The Hot One. Go check that out wherever you can. It is available on Spotify. If you have one of those memberships that allows you to listen to the audiobooks of Spotify, you can find it on Audible, stuff like that. So go check that out if you get a chance. This is an interesting book. So thankfully Carolyn got back to us. I was like, hey, we'd be down to chat about it, and we chatted with Carolyn, and that's what you're going to hear here in a second.
Yeah, and before we press play on that, I do want to say it's also really interesting, I think, because Carolyn has her own story of losing someone
Yeah.
close to her. And so in that conversation, we kind of talk about like placing ourselves in that moment. So have a listen.
Hello, good folks. Today we have a very, very special segment, very special episode for you today. We have a special guest. Today we have Carolyn Murnick. Carolyn is an award-winning journalist and veteran magazine editor at New York Magazine. She was the resident recapper for The Good Wife at Vulture for season 4 in 2014, but she was brought back to pinch hit for the big Will Gardner death episode. So perfect person to have here to talk about this episode, this moment. She's also the author of 2 books. Her investigative memoir, The Hot One, a memoir of friendship, sex, and murder, recommended by NPR and Entertainment Weekly and Jason Reed, and named the best book of the year by BuzzFeed, tells the story of her childhood best friend Ashley, who was murdered in Hollywood in 2001. Her second book, Blood on Their Hands: Murder, Corruption, and the Fall of the Murdoch Dynasty, co-written with journalist Mandy Matney, is the definitive account of that case. Murdoch murders, big news in the more recent years. In 2018, she gave a TEDx talk called How Crime Shows Undermine Your Empathy, which, if you haven't seen it, we'd recommend watching before or after this episode. It will change how you watch this show. Carolyn, welcome to the Good Pod.
Wow, thank you so much. And thank you for that introduction. That was so generous of you. I'm really excited to chat. And it's a real interesting time warp to go back to these years of recapping. I was like you said, season 4 recapper, which was 2012, mostly 2012, early 2013. And then I popped up for this big episode. And I have to say, I don't actually remember why I did just this one for season 5. I think obviously the regular recapture had to leave, and so they were, casting about for a couple of episodes before they could get someone big. So I don't even know if we even knew, like, okay, Carolyn, do episode 15, and then suddenly it's the episode that breaks open the whole series, and I sort of was coming in cold to that.
I mean, do you think they knew? They're like, you know what? I don't want to. If they knew, they're like, I don't want to do this. Let me put it on somebody else. Let me call in sick for this one.
I don't know. I did want to share a little bit about the experience of recapping.
Yeah, I'd love
which
to hear
was
that.
so, really feels again like a time capsule. We actually got physical DVDs messengered to the office to watch episodes, and sometimes they were only sent 1 to 2 days before the deadline. So you had very little time. You had to wait for this physical copy to come in and then, watch it in one day and write. And that was my experience for those years, which feels like so bizarre now it was the pre-streaming era. They didn't have links that they were sending.
Yeah.
I mean, so was this one any different, or was this about the same? Were they sending it like, was it sent in like this DVD will self-destruct in 5 seconds after you watch it, because it was such a big top secret thing?
I know. I don't totally remember. It's possible that by the end of my time as recapper, they were getting into links, but I definitely remember the physical DVDs being a thing. And even, I was based in New York at the time. I worked at New York Magazine, but one time I was working on my book in LA, like when I was on deadline for Good Wife, and I had to get a physical DVD from the LA office. The CBS LA office was messengered to me when I was in LA. So even still, they couldn't do like a link workaround wherever you were in the country. Which I wonder, were there any recappers living in states where there aren't messengers, and how do they get their episodes? I don't know.
I also imagine the wait line for like in the office after the reviewer or the recapper had recapped. Like, was there like I get the episode 15 after you, because I need to see, like not that anyone would share early releases of anything ever. I don't think that would never happen. But if so, I could just imagine it being quite a party.
Yeah.
Once word gets around, yeah.
My memory was that, we almost had no time. It was like, I bet, we got it a day before it was on. So then by the time anybody would want to borrow it, they could already have seen it on the air. But that's another good question.
I've got to know what your reaction was when you get into your emails one day and you see some jokers from the Good Pod say they want to talk about the Good Wife. What is this? What was your reaction to that? Like, oh my gosh, does it bring back all these like memories of like, oh my god, that was a time?
Yeah, it really does. Also, those years, 2013, at least it feels like in my life was a pivotal year, and really anything that happened before 2016. I think there's been all this talk now about we were really just living in a different world of both like the last years of a more cohesive culture, and we did not have this political upheaval yet, and all the things that were yet to come that are shaping us around Me Too and the Weinstein breaking, and gun violence, school shootings. Like I was looking up like what was going on in the years of season 4 of The Good Wife, and that was the Sandy Hook shooting happened, I think, when they were on the winter hiatus. And I'm pretty sure I remember like wanting to write something about that shooting? Like, how do I just come into recapping a TV episode this week when this is what's going on in the world? And I think I wrote a paragraph about it that my editor just cut, and it's like, this is the TV recap world. We're just doing this episode. But, more and more it's started to feel like, how do we focus on any one thing when we're all getting information from all over the world about crazy things and terrible things? And now it's even more pronounced, that kind of information overload, and feeling like you're gonna get a New York Times alert that changes everything all day long.
Yeah.
But in 2013, it wasn't quite like that yet.
Yeah.
I think that's like a common experience for, I know, us as podcasters covering the show, but also for our audience. It's just like, it feels like there's like a time warp or a time schism between then and now. And how can we not bring in this lens of 2026 when we're rewatching it? So as we get into questions about the show, I'd love to hear like your perspective looking at it now. But Jason, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I want to get into the actual experience of watching, because you had it early, and you watch this episode, and it's. I wonder if you were like all of us, like, no, they didn't just kill Will Gardner, did they? Like they wouldn't do that. This is his show. So what was your guttural reaction when first watching it with fresh eyes for the first time?
Well, my memory is, of course, like, this is traumatic and this is painful, and probably as a recapper, I must have thought, like, I can't believe I have to deal with this. Like, this
especially
is
on a sub,
this is major. And I was not, The Good Wife season 4 was the only recapping I've ever done, which is why that also hearing from you guys makes it funny. I mean, I was an editor at New York Magazine. I was on staff. I did a bunch of other, I covered a lot of other sort of general interest topics, like the travel section, the food section. I covered like what was going on in New York City. And then, my friend Jada Yuan, who was also a great journalist and was recapping the earlier seasons, knew I watched the show. She wanted to move on, so I just sort of took it because I was in-house. But I still was grappling with, like, what is a TV recap supposed to do? What is the purpose of it? And, Jada's advice was, the recap, kind of like your podcast, is sort of this container for your commenters to really express their feelings. And so you want to summarize the action and bring in insight that you can, look up from whatever historical context clues they're giving and what you know about the actors. But it's really creating this container for the community discussion and the community processing of each episode, because you have these very committed fans. And that's something that I experienced. There were a side conversation. There would be conversations on Twitter about the recap, and we had these core Twitter commenters that would comment in our comment section as well as online. And so I was learning on the job around what is the purpose and what value can I offer with this writing. And so I think I was trying to, progress as I went, looking around at New York Magazine, and Vulture at the time had some really sophisticated recap writers. And we had these, award-winning journalists that had been recappers, like Emily Nussbaum, who went on to win the Pulitzer Prize for criticism at the New Yorker. She was a Mad Men recapper, in the few years before I took on The Good Wife. And we also had some very, very popular Gossip Girl recaps that were done by Jessica Pressler and Chris Rouser, who are, great journalists and editors. So I had this pool of people that I was trying to watch and learn from and sort of be on the same page with. And sometimes it was a challenge. Sometimes I would feel like, I don't know if I'm up to this, because I would look around at what, Emily Nussbaum was doing with Mad Men and think like, whoa, how do they understand how to put so much context into this, and how to really put so much meaning and detail and observation. But, now looking back on it, I get that again, these recaps, both online and also your show, they're a container to talk about larger issues. And I think the larger issue of episode 15 is trauma, and it's gun violence, but it's also this maybe universal experience of like whether you're in the room or not, getting a call that changes your life, that changes everything, whether it's a call that you're someone has died unexpectedly, or someone's in an accident, or hearing news that changes everything, that's going to puncture your day and create a before and after. That's what that episode is.
Yeah, I mean, and you did a great job in the recap, because I did read the recap you did for Vulture,
Mhm.
and you were kind of, you were there with us as an audience, like, hey, I know you guys are struggling with this. I am too. Let's talk about it. Let's get
Yeah.
through it. So you did a great job with that, and you mentioned, like, it's a very human experience to just be going about your day, and then you get a call that your life has changed dramatically, and it's just such a universal experience. And I love that, as the Kings, right after this episode was released, the Kings wrote a letter to the fans, kind of talking us down a little bit, like, hey, we know you guys are really sad, like, and they tell us, like, hey, this was in the works for a long time. Josh Charles wants to leave the show. Was there any buzz? Like, because I think you mentioned in your recap, like, there was some buzz that Josh Charles was looking to leave the show, but no one saw it happening this way. What was
No.
that? What was the conversation like in the beforehand? Was there that kind of buzz in the air, like Josh Charles is looking to leave? Like, what was the conversation like at the time?
Good question, and I totally don't remember. And I know
Yeah.
that, so somehow I knew something, he wanted to leave it. I remember, so my recap compares, I mentioned like the Downton Abbey death of
Yeah.
Matthew, and that one was like,
Don't
kind of
listen,
everyone
Jason.
saw it coming more. Oh, did I give something away here?
Jason hasn't watched it.
I'm
Okay.
not going to. That's fine.
Cover your ears here. But well, it's interesting because Matthew Good, who is a
Yes.
pivotal actor on this episode, was in Downton Abbey, and he sort of took over when this character died.
Yes.
But there was sort of this sudden death of this well-loved character on that show, but that one, I feel like there was a lot more in the ether already, that this guy's leaving and there's going to be something dumb happening to him at the end. But I think somehow the Will death was more shocking. And I guess this sort of random gun violence of it all makes it just traumatic for the viewer. And I think watching this again now, it really captures that trauma. Like, I felt emotionally affected by watching it again, probably even more so now.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons why, at least from my perspective, that it works so well, and I love your perspective on this as well, is just how it's one of those, like, he did what? He died how? Like, it's not, like, gun violence is so far away from you until it's right next to you. You know what I mean? Like, that type of thing. And also the fact that all of these characters kept repeating to themselves, I just saw him. I just talked to him. Like, you never know the last time you're going to really speak to someone. And I think that is like a universal experience as well. And the Kings kind of highlighted that. And I know that, like, that's something that you've kind of explored in the work of your books and things like that as well. So any perspective on that part, especially like going into episode 16, we see the aftermath of the actual death and how everyone's just kind of like, but I just saw him. It was right there. And that, I think, to me, anytime I find news of somebody had passed away, it's like, oh, yeah, it could happen at any time, I guess. And that's also traumatic to.
Yeah, you're right. And so my first book, The Hot One, was about my search for answers surrounding my childhood best friend's murder. And she was killed in 2001. They arrested someone in 2008 who ended up being in custody. He was in jail waiting trial for another 11 years. So the trial didn't even happen until 2019. My book came out before the trial because it was going on for too long and I had to meet the deadline. So, but the years of when I was a recapper and, in my early 30s, I was spending time working on this book, which involved going to LA where she had lived and attending pretrial hearings for her killer, and also meeting her friends, and also kind of just reckoning with sort of, why am I doing this, and why this relationship was so meaningful to me, and, you know, trying to get as much information as I could around who she was in the, you know, year or weeks leading up to her murder, and also the impact, what it means to kind of, that now, you know, a decade later, I was spending my time kind of in tribute to her. And some of the storytelling and the decisions that they made in episode 16 was reminding me of, you know, the kind of, was reminding me of some of the thinking in my book, which is that the whole, you know, the research process and the writing, and I think the narrative itself is a little bit like a grief work in a way, because I recognize the instinct to want to learn as much about the details. Like, if you know about how the killer, you know, met her, you know, met my friend Ashley, and what had their interactions had been, and, you know, you're trying to sort of reckon with, if you know all the details, somehow you can reverse it, or somehow you can deal with it. And I see that that's what they're going through in episode 16, with going around to, you know, Kalinda going to the gunman's jail cell, and, you know, wanting to know those details. And then we have Alicia interviewing the Matthew Good character. And so I was recognizing this impulse to somehow want to know all the details. And then at the same time, Alicia has these fantasy moments. You know, we have these moments where you see a man that she thinks is Will, and it's not. Or you have, you know, the very end of the episode, which is so devastating, this sort of imagined final conversation. You know, that felt resonant to me around some of the things that I write about in my book, which one element of it is kind of this reckoning with the power of friendships, and that people, you know, these relationships that change you, that never leave you even after the person has died.
Yeah, you can also feel that in kind of like creating parallel universes in a way, right? Like,
Mhm.
what if I had done this? Would it have
Yeah.
changed anything?
Yeah.
You know, Alicia says like that was my case, like to
Mhm.
Diane in 16. It's like she's saying just like, what if I had that case? Would Will still be
Yeah.
alive? Like
Yeah.
you ask about these what ifs as we see Alicia go through several times in this episode. Like, what was that last conversation? What was he going to say? What could that have
Mhm.
changed about my life? Where
Yeah.
she's going so far as to imagine Will wanting to run away with her at the very end of the episode. And you know, that's, and we all know that's grief talking, right? Of like you create these universes in your mind where, you know, Alicia and Will were not even nowhere near a space but to have actually been something, but she's just going through all these scenarios. And just how powerful that moment was with Peter, like at the end, where he's hugging her,
Yeah.
and she's just like dead. She's just like, no, like you're not the one I want. Like, it's Will I want. It's so wild. And that's what grief does to you. It makes you create those parallel universes, the sliding doors of it all. What would have happened? What could my life have been like in, you know, 5 years, 10 years from now? And that really makes you think about life and think about like the life that could have been. It was too late to have that happen, but Alicia wasn't thinking about that 8 hours ago. Now she is. So that's just kind of like one of those wild things that grief does to you. I want to talk about kind of where this moment lies in the TV landscape of it all, because this was, you know, how many years ago? 12 years ago. And in your recap, you likened this to, you know, Matthew Crawley's car crash in Downton Abbey, Brody's death in Homeland.
Yeah.
You know, 12 years later, is this, if someone's putting a list together of top 10 most shocking TV deaths, does this still make it? Like 12 years on, what other deaths have there been that have like this much of a magnitude out of nowhere? You know, recently we had Euphoria end, and I think some people were surprised at a death there, but I think it was, you could imagine that. This was out of left field. Does it still clock as a top shocking TV death?
Well, you know, to me, it's shocking, certainly, and maybe this goes together with the impact of it was profound, I think, and that maybe that's connected to the shock, or impact can be its own thing. I actually think the death was handled to me with a way that created a lot of emotional resonance and depth. And it also reminded me of a more recent death, which was Logan on Succession, which was not necessarily surprising because he's old and it was foreshadowed in a different way that he had other medical issues. But the experience of, he has this heart attack on a plane and the information gets lost. Some people are calling other people to try to communicate what's happened. Is he dead? Can there be a doctor? The sort of misconnection, the crossed wires of what's actually happened. That's kind of what was happening in Good Wife too, with, they're here, information's trickling out. There's a shooting in the courtroom. That's Will's courtroom. Where is he? They get to the hospital. They don't even know he's dead yet. I found that very, very powerful and almost not even related to, was it shocking? It was just powerful. And watching it again, I don't know if I would have thought about it 12 years later, but I appreciate the opportunity to watch it again. And I find it powerful as Logan's death on Succession recently. And another thing, this reminds me, another thing in my own life that is not connected, not having to do with my friend's murder, that I was researching at the time. A few months after Good Wife season 4, so later in 2013, I got a call that my father had collapsed and no one knew what happened, and I had to leave work and rush to the hospital. I did not know if he was alive or not. Over the next few days, we pieced together that he had had a cardiac arrest at the gym. He had been resuscitated. He was in a coma. We had 10 days of just sort of touch and go, life and death, extreme stress, trauma. He ended up, getting this miraculous life-saving surgery. He's made a full recovery. He's still with us. That was but I look at that is one of, that's one of my great traumas of life. That's my touch point for this experience of getting a call in the middle of a workday that changes everything, that pushes you into another realm. And watching the Good Wife episode reminded me of that, and also it recalls that time, and also the Logan Succession death recalls that time of just the early hours, sometimes days, of not knowing what's actually happened. Is it real? Like, you get a call, someone's collapsed, are they dead? What does that mean? They're getting a call that someone's shot. What does it mean? It just felt very very true to life in a devastating and significant way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also like the what ifs that come up when you get that call too. It's the combination of, oh, there's news, it's not complete. And I have, like, for your own sanity, at least when I've received those calls, I want to complete the story. I want to jump in and fill in the holes, because then I'll have something to react to. I'll have something there. And sometimes you're not going to get the answer. Sometimes you are going to get the full answer. And I think we see in 16 and I know in our lives collectively, like, how that can be hard to just deal with, going with the back and forth of reality and the what if and then like the could have beens, right? Like, there's so many different things kind of happening in that moment that can be really hard to ground yourself in that.
And the thing about Will's death is that The Good Wife is not a show that you think this would be happening on, which I think makes it even more out of nowhere shocking. Like, I was looking at, okay, what are the top TV shocking deaths? And we got shows. Listen, spoiler alert for Game of Thrones, Ned Stark. Like, if you read the books, you might have known. So it's not like totally out of nowhere. I'm just going down this Hollywood.
Well, that one has another one too, but yes.
Well, yes, that's several, I'm sure. Charlie Pace lost. Probably a pretty shocking one, I think. Is up there. But again, a show where people die. I think probably one of the more comparable ones to this. Spoiler alert for Grey's Anatomy. Derek Shepherd, Grey's Anatomy. But people die on that show all the time, though. That is kind of a caveat. But I think that one was another, like, out of nowhere left part. But I think probably people had already surmised that what was his name? McDreamy was on his way
Patrick
out.
Dempsey. Patrick
Yeah, Patrick
Dempsey.
Dempsey. So this one really, to me, really just ranks up there with like
Mm,
the most shocking ones.
I
mm,
think what's also kind of can impact that is like the size of the TV landscape, right? Like
mm,
this was like a network show that
Yeah.
was that, and we were in the routine. Like the Good Wife. Every time I think about, yes, it was like there, like we had Netflix ish, right? But we didn't have the bingeable
yeah.
situation happening yet, and so we had appointment television where you would go and you would sit in front of your TV at a very specific time. And it was like you're caught in that routine, and this disrupts that routine because one of your favorite characters is now gone, and that feeling is a lot larger when you don't have the screaming streaming landscape
Mm-hmm,
of today,
mm-hmm,
where there's everything that's going on. And some people like you said, Jason, you had to put a spoiler alert out there for Game of Thrones was, you know, a big show, but because of the choices that people have now, you might have missed it. But I wanted to talk to you, Carolyn, a little bit about the thesis of your TED Talk for a
mm,
moment, because I found it to be very, as someone, I don't expect you to have listened to the Good Pod, but I cannot not talk about things outside of the show. I tend
mm,
to be one of the people who will draw the connections between what's going on then and now. So the
mm-hmm.
fact that you gave a TED Talk talking about how it's usually women who are killed on crime shows to give men something to do, I was like, yes, Carolyn. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for saying the hardest thing out loud. And the Kings, like when they wrote that letter, they explained to us as the fans of like Will was killed for Alicia's benefit,
Mm.
for the
Oh,
furthering of Alicia's story in this. And so
that's interesting.
I was wondering if they phrased it as like Alicia's education,
Mm,
because she's never, like, she's been so sheltered that she's never really experienced the loss. She's been the good wife,
right,
the good
right.
person for so long, right? So I just wanted to get your perspective.
Mm.
Well, first of all, if you did finish watching the show and like all of that stuff, do you think that worked? Do you think that was a thing that worked for Alicia's character, or any
Mm.
other thoughts on shows that have kind of played with this, you know, not killing a woman and
Mm-hmm.
for the benefit of the plot?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting I forgot about that part of the king's letter. Um, and it's true, my talk and also my book is uh sort of interrogating traditional true crime storytelling, which is most of the time focused on the male killer and his arc, and he's the interesting one, and female victims are considered, plot points along his, rise and fall or whatever. So it's always that the male killer is the center and in the interesting one. And so with my book, I was trying to do something different, and trying to, you know, make a sort of feminist true crime storytelling, if that's possible. And so I appreciate looking back, that The Good Wife was a feminist show for its time, in that Alicia Florrick character is sort of like, I should have looked this up, but I think about Elliot Spitzer was this
Yeah.
political scandal in New York that I don't even remember what year, but so Elliot Spitzer had this good wife, standing by him when he was a disaster. And then, she's also a little bit like a Hillary Clinton figure. So it was this idea of like, what if these women that we've seen a bunch of now actually get to be the hero in their own story in a complicated way. And that was when, I don't know, we were more in the future's female arc, and things have kind of, we're in a backlash arc now. And
Yeah.
so it's interesting to look at that. I mean, Alicia was a complicated, flawed character, but also represented a more hopeful feminist moment culturally that
Yeah,
we're not really in anymore, I don't think. What do you guys? I
yeah,
don't know.
Oh,
yeah.
I
And I
I
Yeah.
mean,
would agree with you.
and you also had Diane Lockhart as kind of the
Mm-hmm.
like the senior version of what we wanted Alicia to be, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and as you said, like Alicia is not a monolith of like this is how
Yeah.
you do it. She was a complex character, like in almost similar to your book. you're complex in your book. Ashley is complex in your book. So
Mhm.
that was really like a good like example of like
Mhm.
how we can write people, how people actually are. Because you have Alicia, who's a fictional character, and you have you and Ashley, who are real people.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it just shows we are all complex people. We have good sides, we have bad sides, we have all those sides. So I think it's something that The Good Wife does really well. And I think it is interesting where the kids go, this is for Alicia's education. This is for to prepare
Mhm.
Alicia for the next incarnation of who she's going to be. So I'm so, and I semi remember, because here's the thing, Carolyn, about our rewatching The Good
Mhm.
Wife. Neither one of us had watched it in like a decade, so
Yeah.
we're kind of rediscovering things
Yeah.
as we go along.
Like a
So yeah,
first rewatch type of
yeah,
situation. Like we
Uh-huh.
watched it when it aired, but we have not watched it
Right.
since.
Me
yeah.
neither.
And
I was wondering what you thought. Did you watch the Matlock reboot, this Cassie Bates, recently? So I
I have
did.
not.
No, and
It,
that was, I was like, that actually, I was like, oh, this is my first time watching like a CBS
mm,
primetime show since The Good Wife. And
yeah.
it has some of the same comforts as The Good Wife. It's not quite as dark, I guess, in a way, but it's I thought it was well done. I recommend that one. I'll definitely watch the next season.
I'll have to check that one out. I was also curious to see if you had watched The Good Fight to see the continuation of the story, because that, if you have not, definitely does go deeper into some of the stuff they couldn't say on network TV because it was a
Mm-hmm.
show.
Yeah.
So it does a little bit more of talking about the political landscape and also what happens to Diane Lockhart, the I did everything by the book. I played in the man's
Mm-hmm.
world. I did all of this stuff. What happens to her character when 2016 happens, when
Yeah.
2020 happens, when all of these things, especially after her best friend was just killed by a gun and she's married
Mm-hmm.
to a gunman,
Mm-hmm.
shit,
Yeah.
like there's a complexity there that if you have not watched, I highly, highly recommend.
I've heard it's really great and I haven't watched it, but I will now. It's on Paramount, right?
Yes.
Right?
yep.
So
Yes.
I just got a free trial of Paramount so that I could rewatch these
Hey,
episodes to talk to you guys. So now
Oh,
I will try to watch The Good Fight in the next 5 days.
you could do it.
yes,
You could
Let's
do
see if
it.
I can do
It's
you
it.
got
easily
this.
bingeable.
You got this. I was wondering because as I was reading your book, you talk a little bit about because you did a lot of investigative work in your in Ashley's trial, like the
Mhm.
trial of her killer, and I was wondering if being a part of that and witnessing that kind of colored your perspective a little bit on shows like The Good Wife and all the court process, and like what were your feelings while you're going through it, and then watching, because I mean you at the time, this was like concurrent with you kind of like
Mhm.
recapping The Good Wife. Were those two experiences, watching the show and then actually going
Mhm.
through a court experience?
Um, well, I appreciate the question. I think we all have, a lot of people only have their relationship to court is, if you're lucky, your relationship to courtrooms is just jury duty, once every 48 years, and jury duty most of the time, unless you're picked, you don't really learn that much and don't really you're not really understanding what's going on in a courtroom and all the different kinds of courts. And that was my experience with court before I started working on my book. And then suddenly I put myself in this like hearings for a serial killer in LA, in this courthouse that's one of the most, famous um districts of, I'm probably using the wrong words, but it's the same courthouse where all the high profile trials of LA take place, like the OJ trial. Like any celebrity that ends up in court goes through this building. It's like it felt like a major um cultural um place of significance, where I felt a lot of imposter syndrome even being there, like very over my head. And so, my early experiences in court, and probably even my later ones with going to this hearing, was like, this is kind of scary. And like, am I allowed to be here? Am I supposed to be here? Can I sit here? And, these people, the judge, the bailiffs, the other attorneys that come in to watch, like just getting a sense of all these figures and what they do, what they're supposed to do, what the rules are, the unspoken rules. It was a big, steep learning curve to understand what this process is, and I still don't. But and I see these court shows, they're exciting because I think court a lot of court is probably not exciting. Like there's a lot of court that goes on where it's like someone's, traffic court, someone showing up for parking tickets all day long, or, people showing up for much lower stakes stuff. But then there are these high profile trials, which was maybe the kinds of trials that were dramatized in The Good Wife, and also the trial for Ashley's killer in Los Angeles, that were really as big as it gets in terms of the amount of resources that are devoted toward the prosecution and the defense, and the security around them, and the media attention, and the high stakes for everyone involved, the people who are testifying. It's a lot. And so, I still look at these shows, and I'm interested in, like, I still look at these shows with fascination around, wow, these lawyers they act quite confidently, and they seem to really understand this unspoken language of how you can talk to judges, or if you get this judge, you're lucky. This shows up a little bit on Your Friends and Neighbors, which I've been watching too, which I think I just saw the finale of this season. It feels like kind of going off the rails, but there's a couple of very expensive, competent lawyers and courtroom scenes in that show where I'm just, I'm still continually impressed by these people. So I guess I would say, yeah, my experience being in, observing this high profile trial of my friend's killer, and also the pretrial hearings and the years of lead up that went into it, I think gives me a little bit extra layer of respect and sort of understanding of courtrooms. I think are fascinating for a writer, because there's so many different narratives to observe. And that's something that I recognized when I started writing about it. Like, oh, I can sit here and there's almost a play going on around, like, what someone's getting interviewed in front of me on the stand, and how they're looking uncomfortable at this question, or less, or they're, there's something they don't want people to hear and they're angry, and then the judge is bored, and there's so many different little details you can observe that I think you see on good courtroom shows as well.
Yeah, I love a courtroom. Like, and then of course, because I've watched all these shows, I think I could be a lawyer, Like it's one of those, like, obviously it's just the same.
You should go for it.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the questions I have kind of related to that is, going, if you were to rewatch The Good Wife, or if you were going to rewatch The Good Wife, knowing what you've been through with your experience and just living in the world since then, like, what lens would you be looking at the show now? What would you be looking out for certain things? Would you be, like, looking at it in a different way than you looked at it originally?
Yeah, well, I think it feels a lot different in a way that I wouldn't say the show's dated, because it's still good television, but I feel like it is clearly a product of a different time, and maybe kind of a more hopeful time in a way. I feel like there's been talk around, like, what's this other show? This idea of, like, we want to watch competent people.
Oh yeah, competency porn, as they call it.
Competency porn. In some ways, The Good Wife is kind of that. Like, there's these people are high level and smart, and, like, they have this sophisticated law firm where they're considering all the angles, and maybe there's politics going on, but they're smart, competent people, and there's something comforting about that, and that is even more absent in our world in these days, these years. And so that element is feeling more present to me when I rewatched it, the competency of it. And and also, like I said, the kind of more hopeful feminist moment that I feel like Alicia represented, and just sort of the quaintness of that there was less on TV. This was more of a thing that could draw a greater audience, that people were coalesced upon. There's a nostalgia for the pre-streaming era.
Yes, for sure. 22 episode seasons of TV, which some people are into, some people aren't. I say bring it back. I used to
Yeah.
love the 22 episode era of TV. Now we have, we're lucky we get 8 episodes a season. And I'm someone that loves continuity, loves a story, loves a long story. So I do really long for those days of 22 episode seasons of TV. And you're right, like a favorite thing of ours to do on this podcast is look at these things and be like, oh boy, if only you knew what was coming in
Cute.
Yeah.
2026. Like,
Cute.
Well,
yeah.
even I was thinking like Chris Noth has been canceled, right?
Yes.
I mean, yeah. So
Yep.
it's like Chris
Yes.
Noth is a bad guy now, but back then he was like sort of appealing, and like he's no more.
Let me tell you, Carolyn, you haven't listened to our podcast, so you don't know this, but Marissa loves
Hate.
Chris Pratt. She loves Peter
Hate.
Florrick, her favorite character.
No, I do not. No.
Agrees with everything he does.
Imagine. I cannot stand that man. There's even a thing at Carolyn, we do a thing where if he does even like one thing like remotely above a bar, like then I'm like, okay, I will acknowledge that. But he has a lot of work to do.
He has
Yeah.
a star chart. He's currently at 1.5 stars. Whenever he does something okay or decent, we give him like a little point of a star. So he's
Yeah.
at 1.5 now over the course of the series.
Fire
We've taken away parts of stars for things he's done. So we still have a long ways to go with Peter to get some more stars. But and as talking about the things that we see with different lens, like there's this moment in 15 where they talk about Kalinda and Carrie, and
Oh yeah.
Alicia goes, I thought she was gay. Like he's
Yeah.
like, there's like, I don't know, bi or something. It's like,
Yeah.
oh boy, like that, they just did not. It was the world 2014. It's just like, oh my god, like you don't.
It's
you don't even-
true.
I do want to say, Carolyn, I love how you handled that in your recap because you were like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
moving on. Like, I don't really know how to say about
It's
that.
funny. Yeah. Every time there was like every time there was some sexual scene, usually that involved Kalinda, I would be like, how do I write this? Like, is this okay? Like, yeah, there was something around, I don't even know if I put this in, but sometime in season 4, there was like a sex scene with Kalinda where I was watching it and I was like, are they supposed to be having anal sex? Is that what this or not? Because I can't tell. And I remember talking about it with someone in the office, like, do I write that in a recap? Like, is that anal or aren't I supposed to know if it is as the recapper? And then this other editor was advising me, you could just have it as a question. Is that anal? Like, that's what I'm talking about. I'm totally talking off the cuff here.
I don't.
In season 4, it would have to have been.
Was it Lana? Was it the
I
FBI
think
lady?
so. Yeah.
It was probably the FBI lady. But the evolution of Kalinda's sex scenes is interesting to track throughout The Good Wife, because in seasons 1, 2, and 3, it was just kind of like it was very strongly hinted at that she was doing things with the women. They would cut away from her right before they're about to do something with a woman. And now, like, in season 5, we're actually having these like these sex scenes. Of course, the weird sex scenes where the current lady she's betting is like doing Katy Perry lyrics like as they're having sex, which is weird in the first place. But we're in a better place now in 2014 with LGBTQ sex, right? Like we're finally getting to some of the good stuff here. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey. Speaking of Kalinda, we've been tracking it the whole time. It's a big part of the Good Wife lore of all the fans, and you can see it, especially in 16, where there's this edict that Kalinda and Alicia may never be in the same scene together. They can only speak on the phone. At the time, in the hubbub, in season 4, when you were recapping every week, what was that like? Was there a realization of like, what's going on here? Like, what is happening with these people?
Good question. I did not reread all my season 4 recaps, so I don't know if I ever addressed that, but I would imagine I did not, because that's the sort of like evolved TVI observation that I don't know if I quite had yet as like a my first time recapping, thinking about the way these decisions around these actors' contracts or what might be going on is influencing who's on set the same day. I didn't even think in those terms. Now I feel like we are much more versed and people like you are raising these questions, but I don't think I was.
I don't
Or
think
even-
anyone. I don't think watchers of the show were either, Carolyn. I don't think you had a deficit
Yeah.
there at all. I think there's also, like, to your point in terms of like the conversations. I think from our standpoint, we're just like so, because there has been talk of the separation. We call it on the show the Great Schism between these two characters, because they were friends. They were like best friends, and then all of a sudden, like, even in if you watch in 16, the way that Alicia talks to Kalinda is just kind of like a coworker talking to another coworker, and not like a friend.
Well,
so I think like part of
it denotes a friendship that has not been on the show in the whole season.
Well,
so it's very odd.
Yeah, but I think the reason we just were also asking, because we were like, is there any insider tea that you would have as the recapper at that time that would have had that like would have said like, don't talk about it, don't talk about the schism, don't talk about these things.
I'm sorry to disappoint.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all good to know.
Now I'm remembering who I thought Kalinda, the anal sex thing. It was a man. Wasn't there some man that she was dating where there was like sort of S&M-y type scenes, and it was always like lit? Yes.
Yeah.
No, it was probably
her husband.
Yeah, it was the husband.
Nick.
To me, it was that guy.
There's this one time where Nick was eating an ice cream cone, and she like put her fingers inside the ice cream cone.
Right.
I forgot what the insinuation
what
was.
Yeah,
it was terrible.
It sounds like so. It was that guy, and yeah, a big question for me is like, what are they trying to show here? Is this significant that we're supposed to understand something about their type of sex? I don't know. Left me flummoxed as a recapper. I don't know.
Carolyn, we've been waiting the whole series, my kingdom, for a good Kalinda, pairing or something, because all the people she gets paired with are just awful and terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, of course we were just wondering, like, hey, was there any hints about this Juliana Margulies Arjun Punjabi scandal back in the day? But no, apparently not.
I wish I knew that. But I wanted to give a shout out to Jada Yuan, who I mentioned earlier, who was the recapper for seasons, I think 1 through 3 or whenever we started. And I mentioned to her your podcast, and I said, oh, maybe they should contact you too. And she said, great, I would love to talk. So you should reach out to Jada.
We will do that.
And she's the one that would have more like TV intel, because she's been in that world a long time, and was very smart about thinking in those terms.
We will definitely do that.
But also really appreciate your take on kind of like the real world versus and the recapping. And also, like, I really commend for you in terms of how you handled. I just came out of subbing as a teacher in a classroom. So, like I know what it's like to just be thrown into a situation that you're not necessarily prepared to cover. And you really handled one of those really, really well with your recap of this particular episode, especially having not covered the season up until this point. So I really enjoyed talking with you to get your perspective on not only the recappers world, but also what it was like to be living kind of a similar type of situation at the same time while you were doing the recap. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you guys. I feel, grateful that this, show that I watched and recapped briefly over a decade ago has connected me with both of you and your interesting work. Pleasure to be on talking to you.
Thanks.
Yeah,
and
it was great.
Excited to see the rest of your season.
Yeah, it was great. Carolyn, do you want to just tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find all of your work, where they can find you now, if you want to any social media, give it all.
Sure. Well, please, you can check out my book, The Hot One, available in paperback. And then my second book is Blood on Their Hands. Both of those you can get at your favorite bookseller. And please shoot me a note when you have anything. If you read the book and want to tell me what you think, you can find me at carolynmurnick.com.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And we're back.
So yeah, as you guys could hear in that interview, it was a lot of like real world comparison of like what is that moment like in real life? How does it make us feel as an audience watching, and how does it relate to us in our real lives? So I thought it was a very interesting conversation.
Yes. Yeah. And we're so grateful that Jason, again, like I said, pounding the pavement all the time, trying to get opportunities for this podcast. So make sure you let Jason know how awesome he is by liking, commenting, subscribing, doing all of that stuff. It would be great.
You can also do that to make sure that Marissa knows how great she is by literally
I'm not looking at, but I mean,
producer.
I just would not. We would not have had this interview or this opportunity if you didn't take the initiative to do that.
Well,
So
we wouldn't have a
well
literal
done.
we wouldn't have a literal podcast if you did not do all the literal podcast things that I know nothing about.
Thank you. Well, and we also wouldn't have this podcast if it wasn't for the listeners who wrote in and kind of told us about some stuff. So, I do want to talk about something that Bex, who we've mentioned before, supported us and Buy Me a Coffee. Thank you so much. But also shared their recollection, like what they wrote at the time. This was the era of blogging. Like people
Mhm.
were talking about their things on their own blogs. And while Bex has a coffee blog, she was so moved by this moment, she broke from her traditional content to write about the death of Will Gardner and how it impacted her in the moment and shared that article from 2014 with us. And one of the things that I wanted to, she wrote, we're going to link to the article below, but one of the things I wanted to highlight with you, Jason, is the fact that she talks about the missed calls and voicemails. And the Kings kind of talk about it in their letter too, of like bad timing, just in general. But there are so many missed calls and so many voicemails within the story of these two characters that I thought it was really fitting that there was a missed call and a voicemail at the end of their relationship that was forced upon them.
Yeah, it's just so funny. If Will and Alicia's relationship is about two things, it's elevators and missed calls.
Yes, pretty much.
And we have this missed voicemail and I think it's interesting that we have all this knowledge about the past of the good wife, where it's like it even reads into Eli's deliverance of the news to Alicia. Of like
Yep.
Eli has a lot more information about Alicia's relationship with Will than even Alicia does.
And he still has it held, right? Like he has not
Mhm.
said anything to Alicia about this missed voicemail or having this voicemail and the fact that he deleted this voicemail.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I honestly don't. I do wonder if that's going to be like something that comes up where I don't know how it would, but it seems like sometimes these characters in the show just blurt out things at any given moment of like,
Well, a funeral is an emotional moment. You
sure.
never know.
So yeah, it's what Alicia and Will's relationship is about, and for the missed voicemails to be, the first one was a declaration of love from Will to Alicia, which could have changed everything. Would have changed.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, but it was two, right? Like in that first
Mhm.
moment, there were two different messages. There was a declaration of love, let's go, let's do it. And then there was a no, you're right, we shouldn't do it voice message.
Well, was it? 'Cause I'm trying to remember. The first one was like, well, both of them were deleted, but Will told her about the one with like,
What
I said some crazy things, but I said never mind, it wasn't important. But the
I
second one
thought,
was really the one that was like, no, I freaking love you. Call me back. Like we can do this. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about your damn kids. I don't care about nothing. I'm in love with you. Let's do this damn thing, which is the one that was the important one, which he decided to pull back from her and not tell her about. Because I think I'm just trying to remember. I think at that point it was like clear that Alicia was going back with Peter, and Will didn't want to stir up any more stuff.
well, because Peter was also like, yeah, yeah. And I just remember that last one was the one that was deleted, not the first one.
Mm.
Because I think her phone was intercepted by Eli as she was going up on stage while Peter, I think, was announcing he was going to run for governor. And at that moment, he hears, or at some speech, I don't know if it was the governor announcement or not, but then he sees the voicemail and he's like, so he knows, he knows what's going on between Alicia and Will. So he listens to the voicemail, which at this point I was like, why don't you have a key code on your voicemail? But whatever. So he listens to the voicemail and he deletes the one that is the declaration of love and leaves the one that's kind of
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I don't think we should do this. You're right.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
at this point, they've had this conversation, that Will and Alicia had the conversation of, this is it. Like, we're at this point. It's now or never. What do you want to do? And Alicia has said, like, no, I don't think we should. And Will is like trying to gear himself up to do it. And he's watching her on the screen while he gives this voicemail message to her. And Eli is the one that takes away the loved one and then walks with this knowledge through the rest of I mean, I don't know, like I don't remember if and or when it comes out, but to this point in our watching, he has not said anything to anybody, but it has impacted the way that Eli navigates a relationship with Alicia and Peter at the same time.
Yeah. So as Bex said, as we've said, the voicemails are a big part of their relationship and came into play in at a pivotal point and at the very end of their relationship. As we talked about in 16 is on Alicia's mind the whole time and is the crux of her story for that whole episode.
The whole time.
The whole time.
Anything else from Bex's cleverly titled article of Last Will and Testament?
In her message to us, she mentioned the how she stumbled upon the information by accident. Bex had told us that she was watching religiously every week. The Good Wife was one of the only ones she would watch religiously, so she would stay off of Twitter at the time to like avoid being spoiled, because that was the day when people talked about episodes of TV on Twitter religiously. She stayed off Twitter till she could watch, but she went on Facebook shortly after the episode and got spoiled by the kings themselves, who had this, I think it was probably this goodbye Will post of like, and she saw goodbye Will and like ran off of the post because she didn't want to get too spoiled. So she didn't know what the goodbye was. She thought maybe he was moving, maybe he was leaving the law firm, and then come to find out, no, he was dead. Just had no idea it was going to be that big of a thing. So I thought that was very funny and very, very cool. As Marissa says, we're going to link the article. It's a very well written, very thought out article. If you have time to time to read it, you should, because it's a very interesting article about the death of Will and all that stuff. I want to like talk a little bit about the YouTube of it all as well. We had some YouTube comments that were a little interesting. Let me pull it up real quick. There was somebody that, like we did, questioned questioned Alicia's questioning of what, Clinda's gay or Clinda's not gay. I thought she was gay, and they had said, let me pull it up. How did Alicia think Clinda is gay when she literally slept with Peter? Very true, very true. Someone does answer that. It says because she only sleeps with people to get information, and then she dumps them on their ace. Clinda is a one-dimensional, hypocritical user. I was like, that's coming in.
That's a read.
That's a read. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do agree with like, why would Alicia think that Clinda has no interest in guys? Like, she literally slept with your husband.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely forgot that too. So way to call me out too, because that's like the whole premise of their beef. But
like, come on, Alicia, come on. We also heard from Reversible Octopus, which we've heard from a few different times. Jason with the deep cut early on. My goodness, good sir. I don't know what that was about. I don't know what the deep cut was. I responded to them. I was like, can you remind me what the deep cut was? Reversal Octopus. So when you hear this, like, hit me up again and tell me what my deep cut was. I want to know if if it was profound. I don't remember it at all. Marissa is so real for the transferring DNA with Josh. So real. So Reversal Octopus is with you on that one. And they also say, I've watched The Good Wife over and over so many times and always skip this episode. Is both frustrating as hell with the case and also sad as hell with Will dying. For sure. Another user talks about how much they hated Will on their first watch and was glad that he left the show. No offense, though, is how they sign off that.
I mean, I guess I could see it. Like, he is kind of a self-centered person,
I guess. But I feel like he has so many other good qualities and good redeeming moments that they should kind of drown out the bad that we've seen. But I mean, listen, to each their own, right? Like,
I feel like someone could be like, I have an altar to Peter Florrick in my house, and I'm just sitting there going, I hate this man.
You try and say that's what I do sometimes.
Sometimes I wonder if some of those trinkets behind you have some sort of something or other.
No way, man. Yes. And then we got some Reddit threads that didn't go into too much detail, just basically about, I woke my husband up to tell him about this, this crazy death at the time. So we appreciate all the feedback and all the
Oh, well, yeah, and we
strength
have
with memories. We do have another one.
yeah.
We've talked a couple times about the old network we used to podcast for post show recaps. Post show recaps had a Discord that you could go into and talk a little bit about shows and what you're thinking of. We have a the Good Pod tab over there for people to kind of hit us up. And someone that comments a lot over there is Tova.
Yeah.
Tova said, "When I think of The Good Wife, this is the episode that comes to mind first. This was about the time that casting news was starting to become rampant online, totally removing shock from TV characters' death or other departures from shows. I still don't know how the Kings pulled this one off, but when I think of TV character deaths, Will Gardner ranks as the most shocking I can remember. I viscerally remember the gasp I let out when Kalinda pulled back that sheet. I don't know that we will ever get that again." Yeah, I for sure. I 100% in the way that we talked about it in episode 15, the way that they kind of tried to like fake us out in a way of like Kalinda and Diane are outside this room as someone's
Yeah.
getting worked on. It's like, oh, you're gonna be okay, buddy. It's like, whew, that was close, man. I mean, but they never would have killed Will Gardner, right? And then for Kalinda to just go into that room with this dead body just by itself,
One shoe and one
and then the
shoe.
one shoe, and then pulling that sheet back to reveal that Will Gardner has been dead for a minute now. Just like, oh my god! Like I remember watching it in the real time and being like, what the hell? Like I probably cursed out loud or something, but like just the shock of that was crazy.
Well, and the fact that this is a show that like continues for like 2.5 seasons. So there's still more story to tell. Like I think the Kings in their letter, talk about this being a hub for the characters. It's also a hub for us as an audience. Like it's a touch point, and it's something I think we lose. Tova places this very well in terms of, this is when we were hearing about departures from shows and stuff like that. But this is also a shocking TV moment that we all experienced at the same time. This was not happening on a streaming show. This was on a show. Like if you were not watching at the time it happened, you were watching it because you taped it on your VCR or a DVR. I guess we had those at this time. As
Sometimes, Marissa, you placed this show in like the 1990s.
yeah,
It's like,
I'm really bad with the time between like 2000 and 2015 is really like all collapsed into one thing for me. Um, but as David Letterman once said, I DVR'd it and I taped it in, or I DVR'd it and then I taped it. But anyway, like this was a communal moment for people. You didn't have a lot of TV choices. You didn't, and if you're rewatching the show and had not, or if you're watching the show for the first time, if you're doing a first watch and listening with us, I hope we provided you with some of that communal support that would have come with experiencing that all together. Because I mean, today we sort of have that with stream, but it's like throughout a couple of weeks and you don't really know. But this was something like I'm sure people were at the water cooler the next day going like, oh my God, did you see what happened on The Good Wife? Talk about it. Can you believe that happened with Josh Charles? Like, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. Did you see the King's letter? So it was definitely like something, a cultural moment that I don't think, to Tova's point, I don't know if we will ever get that
yeah.
again.
And we talked about in our conversation with Carolyn a little bit, like some of the other TV deaths that are like akin to this. And we talked about at the time, like, but this is a procedural show. Like you did not come to this show thinking about character deaths. With other prestige shows like a Game of Thrones, like a Walking Dead, everyone's kind of up for grabs on that show. Anyone could die at any given moment. But this is like no one dies on The Good Wife. Like that's not the type of show this is. And then for it to like into that, like to for one episode turn to that show where we got people dying, it's like whoa, like that even contributes to the off the wall nature of it. And it makes like we were talking about some of the deaths, right? TV deaths that were almost as shocking. Dexter comes to mind. If you know about Dexter, I think that's like was off the wall out of nowhere in a way. I then started to think about there was this sitcom starring Brooke Shields back in the day, Suddenly Susan.
Susan, yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, one of the actors on the show died I do believe it was self-inflicted, and they had to write it into the show.
Mhm.
And it was this character that was like always on rollerblades or something, if I remember correctly. And they just spent the whole episode talking about like they didn't know where their friend was, but they they basically dedicated the episode to that person and talked about how great a person they were. And like it just makes you think of those type of like deaths. All unfortunately that was like real world, you know, inspired. But this was kind of like that. It's like we saw Will in some great moments before he left. And I think it was a good send off. Could it have been but the problem with this one is they couldn't really uh show us that this was about to happen. But I think with the moments we got were great to give us a send off to Will Gardner.
Yeah, I think like in episode 15, I was like, this wasn't enough for Will. Like
Mhm.
I needed more for Will. But I think I'm satisfied now with the impact, seeing the impact of
Yeah.
the characters afterwards. Because I think what I really, you know, this isn't like a real person's funeral. But like I will say like what I really loved about Will was when he was put in situations where he was uncomfortable, like when he was in military court or when he was like caught with the in my opinion judge or things like that, like and it would have been nice to see him in like if we I had not had episode 16, I would have wanted his last episode to be something like that, where he had to like kind of like overcome out of something.
It kind of was, right? Because he was defending someone that no one else thought was innocent. He was the only person standing up for
That's
Jeffrey
true.
and
That's true.
believing in Jeffrey, believing Jeffrey was innocent. And from what we've been shown so far, I'm pretty sure that Jeffrey did not kill Danny.
Yes,
Um,
I think like these things are like more quirky that he gets caught up in. It's like
mm,
military law, there's a quirk, or like in my opinion, like, and he's so like confident. He's so I'm gonna go forward, but it's these little things, these little pebbles in his shoes that would always kind of like you
trip
have
him up.
to cause him to like readjust in some
Yeah.
way. And so like a nod to that would have been cool, but I don't think it was needed given episode 16. I think episode 16 really does show the impact of Will Gardner and honors the impact that he had on these characters, and I think will continue to go forward. I just on the rewatch of 15, I was just like, but no, it can't be it. Like no.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely agree that 16 gave you the kind of the honoring of who Will Gardner was.
Yeah. Speaking of which, is there anything you would say at Will Gardner's funeral if you were called upon to eulogize this man? Lay it on us, Jason. What would you
I
say?
mean, yeah, I think Will Gardner was someone that was, if you were a friend or a family of Will Gardner, he would defend you passionately. He would defend you fiercely, and Will was never someone without a plan, without a trick, without an ace up his sleeve. He was that guy. But Will Gardner was also passionate. If you decided that you were going to turn on him, and I think that's another part of Will Gardner that we need to address. Just ask Alicia's former desk, right? don't get in Will Gardner's way. But that's how passionate he was in both, fighting for and fighting against people. That was all part of who Will Gardner was as a person, and also someone who, more often than not, would do the right thing. Um, you know, please don't talk about the $45,000. That whole thing,
He returned
but
it. He returned it.
he returned it. He returned it after he was done using it.
Yep.
But he definitely he returned it. And even in Will's last moments, he was someone that was defending people. He tried to stop the carnage of the man that ended up taking his life. So I think to the very end, Will Gardner was someone that would do his all to defend people, um, either whether it is in the courtroom or in the courtroom of life.
So well said. I mean, just in the moment. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think the only thing I would add to that is my sweet, competitive, loyal, romantic man.
Romantic man.
I mean, like if he wanted to be, he would. I think we would see that if he was given a chance, like to really do things with Alicia. I think he would do it.
Yes. I mean, I'm trying.
Because,
I'm
but
not.
not like he's not like he's romantic in his own way. Like
He's got a charm. He's got a swagger.
yeah,
You know,
he's got game in more
sure.
in more ways than one.
He's Mr.
Also,
He's Mr. Take Your Girl. Just ask Peter Florrick.
yeah, but also, you were loved in your misguided skiing and other ways as well. You're just a very Will Gardner. You're a very complicated character, a very rootable character at the same time, and that's very difficult to pull off. And so, thank you for gracing us with your screen on our screens and in our hearts. And we go on. The car is moving, as David Lee says, so we must persist.
Rest in peace, Will Gardner, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. All right. Well, we'll no longer ever talk about Will Gardner ever.
Yeah,
again.
that was it. That was it.
It's done. It's over.
I just have to say, I think fans, let us know if you enjoy this bonus coverage and would like for us to continue talking about Josh Charles. I would just like you to know that Jason has never watched Good Will Hunting. And so if you would like to have some coverage of that show and for us to continue talking about Josh Charles, please do let us know, because I will make that happen.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, listen, you might have to. I'm not doing it for free, y'all. I'm just gonna let y'all know that my time is worth something, so it ain't gonna be for free.
It's true. But I'm just saying, there's an opportunity there. If you show us that you'd like it, we'll figure out a way to make it happen.
Oh, Captain, my Captain.
You have no idea what that means. Keep that out of your mouth. You have no idea.
I watched that moment.
You have no idea, but you don't know. It means nothing without the buildup. It means
where
nothing.
I saw a young Josh Charles that kind of looked like what's his name? Krasinski, Jim from The Office.
Yeah.
So he kind of looked like that guy when he's younger. But anyway, listen, I could be talking into things, but it's not gonna be for free, people. It's not gonna be for free. Anyway, Marissa, you want to tell the folks where they can find you, what you're up to?
You can always find me at itsmemarissag.com. You guys know what's there. Check it out. That's what I got.
There you go. You can always find me over on Patreon at the Perfect Match podcast. We're talking about Married at First Sight. Me and Age Welch. We're doing season 12 right now. One of the great seasons of that show. We're rewatching it, so come check it out. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Until you hear from us next, truly in the world without a Will Gardner.
Who am I? Where do I find my feet? How do we do this, Jason? But we're gonna do it together.
Sleep well, our sweet prince. And for those of you out there that are listening and watching, stay good.